the biggest opportunity anybody could have at that time. I can remember thinking, I remember being envious of George, thinking, wow, he's got a great job there, because if you can take those through the leagues and get them into the Football League, then you'll be a ledge. And it was just going up, although Hayes were far and away above Aldershot at the time, it was still a massive step up for me. And I think it was a case of, we'd played some of the ugliest, boring football ever, but we'd win games 1-0. We had a fantastic defence. And I was aware when I went to the interview that that's not going to suffice at a club like Aldershot. Those fans want to be entertained. They want to go and watch a good game of football. They've been used to higher level football, very similar to Wimbledon. And it's not enough just to win. You have to win in a bit of style. So I knew what it would take to get out of the Ryman League, because it was a league I knew very well. I knew there's always, like Stu pointed out, there's always a Canvey Island in there, or a Chelmsford in there, or there's always some big beasts in there that you've got to overcome. And in that year, that was Jeff King's Canvey Island, another absolute legend. Jeff, big, strong, massive man with, loads of bouncers around him, proper Herbert. But what a gentleman. When we won that at Canvey Island, which we didn't technically win it, but we had won it when we beat Canvey Island, their place, he bought us drinks all night. He's just, I'll get these, I'll get a top gentleman. But going back to first taking over, I knew to get out the Ryman, you couldn't do it with ticky-tacky football. You had to have real men that could go to places, and if it was a fight, you had to win that fight. And I was very lucky to have Stu there, because he was responsible for a lot of those signings. I can remember him pestering me about Paul Buckle. I'm going, blimey, he's little, I wanted a bigger one. He don't look like he's that mobile. He don't score a lot of goals. Well, when push comes to shove, he won us that title. He kept coming up with the goods. And we did push the boundary to get him, in a bit like you pushed it for Gary Abbott. And again, you need to get them right as a management team. And Stu was always very good at identifying the players and getting the right ones in with the right mix. And that's probably 90% of management, because you can be Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp combined, and if you bought duds, then good luck to you.
So who's going to take the credit for signing Ray Warburton then?
I don't know, how did we get him, Stu?
I don't know, Brownie. I knew we came across him, or you came across him in his Rushton Diamonds days, didn't you? When he was at Rushton. Yeah. And he was a warrior, he was a leader. I mean, I spoke, by the way, he sends his regards to both of you. I spoke to him yesterday.
Lovely.
He rings me. Sorry?
What's he doing now?
He's got a care home. Him and his wife have got a care home. Obviously, it's going through a bit of trouble but he's had it for quite a few years now, and he's doing all right out of it. Yeah. So.
And again, what I can remember about him is doing a little bit of homework, whether that's you or me. And again, another one of them. Every club he's played at, he's an idol. Every club, and even at Aldershot, he wasn't there long. But I've never heard a Shot supporter utter a bad word about Ray Warburton. And I would have said the same. I was always devil's advocate. Well, he can't run. His legs are gone. He can't. I have never known a centre-half be in the right place. So the ball comes in near post, he heads it out. Ball comes in penalty spot, he heads it out. Ball comes in back door, he heads it out. You think, how's that happening? It's just his reading of the game was unbelievable.
His pre-match warm-up on his own in the dressing room was Can you remember that time when he used to do the sit-ups and the press-ups and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
God,
His claim to fame is, and I always give him jib about this, he's the only northerner that can't drink.
yeah.
He was absolutely useless. We went on tour. You had to carry him home after 3 pints. We used to take it in turns. I carried him home. You had to carry Paul Priddy home or Warbs, and we tried to get them to go home together one night. And when we looked, they're still wandering about the high street.
I can remember one night we got Priddy on one shoulder and Ray Warburton on the other, and they fall over in the lift, and we had to drag them on the floor to the rooms. And then
I had Paul Priddy. I know it's been funny. I love Paul, but he had rather a biggish nose, and it wasn't helped by the fact that I propped him up against the wall, got his key out of his pocket, fiddling about with the key, and it was a narrow corridor, and he just went bang on his nose. There was claret everywhere.
I can remember that.
And that teaches you should be able to drink if you go on tour.
Yeah.
And Warbs couldn't. That was the only thing I was disappointed with Warbs. But even Warbs, he'd still won. When we were getting more professional, we would be, because my age boys, if we took them away, they got drunk on a Friday night. Whereas at Aldershot, I had to be more professional. And I remember him saying to me, Brownie, unless I have 2 beers, I won't get to sleep in the hotel. So we'd say, yeah, you can't have a drink. No, you can't have a drink. Yeah, Warbs can't have a drink. And again, I suppose that comes from my Hayes days where you think, well, there's no point in him not having a drink and not being able to get to sleep. He has 2 pints and he was off like a light. So he never, when I say I can't remember him having a bad game, the only game I can remember where I noticed that his legs are gone was when we got thrashed by Carlisle at home, and we were getting done in behind, and eventually he's pulled like a proper centre half would. He's pulled both fullbacks in, and we're on the edge of our box. He ain't going to get done behind, but we lost that. I think we lost that about 4. It's the year of the playoff. We lost it 4 or 5. 5, yeah, and got battered, absolutely battered. And I thought we were better than Carlisle. I thought we should have gone up instead of Carlisle, but we improved that year, obviously.
I think he was one of them players we wish we could have worked with him when he was 25, 28, sort of that age, because he was great. And
he picked some injuries up with us, and I think that Carlisle game, he was on the bench, I think, and we had Will Antwi and Brett Johnson, I think.
Yeah.
And that was a game in itself. Sorry, Graham.
That's okay. No, my connection went a bit unsteady there. Just go back to that Canvey Island game again. What do you remember about that? Because it was a big night. It was a Tuesday night up in Essex, and it was just packed with Aldershot fans. I think everyone travelled to that game. A couple of thousand fans. You won the game, but it was just a special night.
Oh yeah. I personally, my first recollection was turning into the road that their ground was on by the sea, and just seeing a whole pub decked out on the corner in red and blue, and the noise they made as the coach went by. And bearing in mind, we would have been there an hour and a half before, and our lot were already legless singing their various Aldershot chants. And I can remember they'd had a new banking, and all our lot were in that, I think. Yeah. And boy, they made some noise. We knew if we won that game, that would be more or less it. And we knew they were a very good side because he had a big budget, but he also had, I think he had people like Mark Stimson, and he had real good pros there who could play, and he had real good centre halves, real good forwards, and we played really a tight game that day, and it was breathless. I can remember, really sort of stomping up and down, thinking, oh, it's a nightmare. Oh, he's going to score. He's going to score. He's going to score. And I think Roscoe got the goal, did he? Or was it Roscoe got the goal? I can't remember who it was, but a fantastic win. I can remember doing a cartwheel in front of the fans. The only cartwheel I've ever done.
I can remember.
Stu, what do you remember about that?
And
I can remember. I can remember bits of the game, but I can remember us being in the bar with Jeff up until God knows what time we left, and then we was on the coach after on the way home, and all the boys was hungry and they wanted some booze on the coach. So we had the coach driver driving around Canvey looking for an off license to get some food on board or some booze on board. Can you remember that, Tal?
Yeah, I thought that was just a normal game.
Yeah. And we got home about 3 o'clock in the morning, I think.
Yeah, great game.
so after that, it was, I think, sort of the pressure was off. You beat St Albans 5-1. Aaron McLean scored a hat-trick, and then Nicky Ball scored a penalty. He beat Hendon 6-2, and it was just all party time then.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I can remember the Hendon game well, because we were fantastic that day, and Hendon were a good side. That was Dave Anderson's side. And I can remember Dave's a good friend of Stuart and myself, and a proper orange, Northern Irish, British man. And you wouldn't want to mess with Dave. And I remember him being in a dugout, and we went 6-1 up or 6 up or whatever it was. And the East Bank was singing, Brownie, Brownie, what's the score? Brownie, Brownie, what's the score? And ordinarily I would have got up and gone 6 or something, but I looked over at Dave Anderson and he said to me, don't you dare, Brownie. And I looked at him and thought, nah, just give him a little.
Yeah.
But a fantastic. And then I can remember, I think we actually won it at Sutton, didn't we? With a draw.
Yeah, you got promoted to Sutton. Yeah, that's right.
A really boring draw. The only thing I remember about that was that I remember singing Shanti Alouetta with one of the fans on the table at Sutton.
Yeah.
He knew the words, I didn't.
So you got promotion, and you're now in the conference. You're a part-time team in the conference. So, you know, firstly, you've achieved what you set out to achieve, but then for yourselves, there was, you wanted to achieve more.
Yeah, I think the paths are so similar, because getting into the conference national is difficult enough, and then when you get in the conference national, there are some big hitters in there. There are some ex-pro sides. We weren't the massive great team anymore, and that was a blueprint for what we'd done at Wimbledon, and it was to assemble the best young side that we could and hoover up all the best young talent. And boy, our recruitment was spot on. We recruited some real good boys. And one of the things, even to the day, that I was proud of, which we couldn't really say about Wimbledon, was that when we left Aldershot, boy, did we leave you with some good players. We left you with some real talented, hungry players. And I couldn't say the same about our time at Wimbledon, because by that time we'd gone up to such a level where the recruitment was a lot more difficult. Bearing in mind, Stuart and I had an inside knowledge between us of non-league players better than nobody at the time, I would say. Paul Fairclough has always been a good friend of mine. I could pick the phone up and Paul and say, who's the best centre forward you've seen, who's the best left side player you've seen, and we'd have a conversation along those grounds. We knew people like John Steele, who had a great scouting network. So when we went into the conference, that was a really exciting side with some really, really exciting players. Funnily enough, like most of life, yeah, you do remember the good times, but I can remember taking a really talented, top of the table Aldershot side to Farnborough and getting spanked 4-0. And that's one of the games I can remember of a really good season where we were bedding in a good young side. And football being football, I can remember getting beat 4-0 by Farnborough. I can remember doing the programme notes. I remember doing the programme notes afterwards and then saying, what do you want to say? And I just write sorry in there. And we just wrote sorry in there. And the boys bounced back because if you get young, hungry boys, and Stuart and I did recruit well, they'll forget about it. You do a training session, you make an upbeat training session. It's your job as a coach or manager to lift them up, and you're firing again. And we were firing again soon, weren't we, Stu?
Yeah.
And if you think, Stuart, if you look at some of those players, you got John Challoner, Will Antwi, Adam Miller, Tim Sills. There were some good players there.
I can remember that John Chandler was a goal scoring midfield player. I think we got him from Rushton. Did we get him from Rushton, did we?
Yep.
Yeah, went from Rushton. We came across him. We always liked him. He had great energy. He could handle the ball. Could take a goal. And he was a good lad, John, and he was a good lad as well. And he came in and did really well for us, didn't he?
And we had Adam, who he went to QPR.
Yeah.
He was a very talented boy.
Well, Adam was a Canby, wasn't he? He played for Canby for Jeff, didn't he? Then he went to he played for Colchester for a while, didn't he?
Yeah,
and an Ipswich boy. And he used to travel with that group from that side of London, didn't he?
Yeah, and he was actually a QPR supporter. His dad was a QPR supporter. I remember Ian Holloway pestering us to sign him and got him a bit cheaper than should have. But even though you've got aspirations to win things, when you're a manager or you're in management, you can't stand in the way of a QPR supporter going to QPR, can you? We're going to sit down with his mum and dad and say, well, actually, no. So I think we assembled a couple of good sides there. And again, a bit like George before me, just couldn't get over that finishing line. And Gary come in after us, brought some players as well and strengthened the squad, but also took them to another level to get up. So, I certainly never begrudged Gary or Martin their moment of glory in the same way we had that, taking the team up, because that Aldershot side that went up was as good a footballing side as I've ever seen, and Gary should take great credit for that.
And we'll come to that shortly. I'm just going to talk about that first season, because the first game was on Sky. It was Accrington Stanley and Roscoe the Same there, and Tim Sills, and Tim Sills' debut, and you win that game. And I can also remember Accrington Stanley away, because I was sitting in front of by the dugout or the technical area, and it all went off. And you and John Coleman came to blows, and it's one of those. It makes me laugh now as it did then.
Yeah, it was. I have to say, in hindsight, it was probably my fault. There was a few expletives exchanged. He threw a punch. He actually missed, of which God he did. You look back in them times, you think how embarrassing. I watch non-league at all levels now, and sometimes I watch the benches and cringe and think, oh, come on, how embarrassing is this? That would definitely go down as being one of my most embarrassing episodes. But if I look back through my career, there were plenty of them, unfortunately.
So for you, Stuart, you'd been George's assistant, and what was it like being, like, obviously with George's assistant, because you'd always have to try and pacify and calm him down. He'd be quite, he'd be very emotional around the bench and all that, because I never quite knew what he was going to do next. What was the difference with George and then having Terry as the boss? And was there a different way of approach for you?
Well, most definitely, because it was early into my management career. I'd sort of started off. George was the first manager I'd worked for, and he was a fiery, passionate.
Bear in mind, I don't want to interrupt this, Stu,
Yeah.
but you did play under Brian Clough and Martin O'Neill.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I say, the managers I played for, Brian Clough, Martin O'Neill, John Bond, managers right at the top there. You could put their names against anybody. Particularly Cloughie and Martin O'Neill. They're at the top of the tree when you talk about management. And I said to you early on in the first part of the conversation, I worked for a guy called Billy McEwen, who was very much like George. He was fiery. He was whatever he says went. And George was very much like that. He liked to have control over everything. And as far as doing your job as an assistant manager, me and Terry have had rows over the years. That's part of the job. You don't want somebody there just to agree with everything you do. But with George, it was very much you had to gauge sort of mood swings and when was the right time to say things and when was not the right time to, just be quiet. So it was a totally different way of working. And, the best time to speak to George was probably the day after or, the training night of the Tuesday. If you was to get into a disagreement with him when he was in full flow of an argument, it wouldn't register. It was you was just wasting your time. And we had a strong physio as well, Alan McCreaney, and he worked for me and Terry, and he was strong-minded. He was a prison officer. He was headstrong, and we used to, you had to as a person who worked alongside, you have to contribute and put your opinion across, because if you didn't, you won't be doing your job properly. And it led to arguments, and it led to disagreements, but in looking at it, you learn good things off people, how to treat people, and now not to do it. And it's like that with everything, for all. Where I say to my sons now is like, you experience who you play for, and you might not agree with everything, but they're the manager, they're the coach. You have to take that on board and then just go with it. And that's very much how it was. But with Terry came in, I don't think we spoke about this. I think Terry's first week was a night. I think he took over the Thursday, I believe, and the following week he was up the FA with two of his players, Ollie Adiji and Mark Graham. You remember that, Graham? He was part of that. And that I think remember the first week in management at the Shots, wasn't it, Granny?
It stopped you getting the job, as it happens. It's the right result for me.
Yeah. So that was a good first week for you.
And what was funny about that was they were two smashing lads, weren't they?
Two great guys, yeah.
Yeah, they were two lovely lads, and who knows what people do on football pitches.
Yeah.
God knows what had happened if we'd have gone up at Stoke, because I presume we'd have come straight back down. It was the thinking of the board was just do as well as you can. Yeah, just try and get in the playoffs, try and do this, try and do that. And we, as a club, we were nowhere near ready.